One of the most interesting phenomena I often will see online is that of a private citizen going viral despite having no social media presence for themselves. We live in a world where millions are so desperate to get famous that when a person stumbles into the limelight, it's a novel sight. I'm Pickle Rick! And this gets even more tricky when the popularity is due to less than stellar reasons. So how should a person respond when caught in a situation such as this? Well, that's a tough one to give a definitive answer on, but I think a good case study of this exact situation would be that of the female police officer that went viral for cheating on her husband with multiple different men at her police unit. While we all saw the memes, as the story progressed, the details became increasingly muddy, making me and one of my writers want to go back and see what exactly happened to cause a local news story to have a lasting impact in the greater online landscape. To begin this story, I think it needs to be pointed out that the police have faced an increased level of scrutiny on the World Wide Web. While this kind of critical review extends to many sectors of public service, scandals that unfold within these departments tend to be far more damaging. And in January 2023, a story emerged from Vergne, Tennessee that cast a whole new light on the internal antics of the local force. This account is centered around Meagan Hall, a 26-year-old cop who was fired from her small department after reports emerged of her engaging in affairs with up to 6 male officers. An internal investigation in December 2022 resulted in Hall, Sergeant Lewis Powell, Sergeant Ty McGowan, Detective Seneca Shields, and Officer Juan Lugo being let go from the department, while the 2 other men who were reportedly involved with her, Patrick Magliocco and Larry Holliday, only faced suspensions. As the investigation was underway, multiple other officers were also intimately linked to Meagan, although many of these claims later turned out to be false. The scandal was brought to light after Vergne's mayor received a tip that Hall was engaging in extramarital affairs with several other cops, prompting the investigation that brought all of the lurid details to light. These intimate trysts took place mostly in private locations, such as hotels and other officers' houses, but several on-duty hookups were also uncovered, including within the police station itself. This added an extra layer of embarrassment to the story. Not only were the officers hiding their affairs, but they were at times apparently prioritizing them above their work. When the investigation began, spearheaded by HR Director Andrew Patton, Officer Magliocco was the first to be questioned. He admitted to having sex with Hall on numerous occasions, and from there the story started to snowball. Magliocco said that Hall spoke openly about her relationship with other officers, and that she had kissed his own wife at a party after learning that they had an open marriage. The officer also mentioned that Hall's own husband, Jedediah, had seen the kiss and was not on board with her engaging in a relationship with the Maglioccos. Despite the details of the escapade and his alleged perspective on them, Jedediah Hall continued to stand by his wife in the fallout of the report. As public speculation around the scandal started to increase, many were quick to make both of the Halls into punchlines, but no real insight into their relationship was given until after the dust had settled. Sergeant Powell was the next to be questioned, in particular about the claim that he had engaged in sex acts with Hall on duty in the police gym. Powell initially denied that anything had taken place between them, and deflected by naming Holliday and McGowan to investigators, claiming that everyone knew about Hall's multiple partners. When proof emerged that he had lied about being in the gym with her, Powell did admit to the affair in a follow-up interview, which led to a domestic disturbance with his own wife shortly afterward. Powell told officials that upon learning about his relationship with Hall, his wife, quote, beat the shit out of him, and he feared that he'd, quote, most likely lose his children after the affair came to light. Powell would continue to be the most outspoken officer against Meagan as the scandal unfolded. In their subsequent interviews, Officer Holliday admitted to having sex with Hall multiple times, while McGowan revealed that he once went to Hall's house with another woman and exposed his genitals. When Hall herself was questioned, she initially denied the affairs outright, but like her former co-workers, she later caved and revealed the intimate details of the encounters, which included hooking up with Officer Lugo at a motel after they met at a go-kart center. When he was interviewed, Lugo also denied his encounter before later owning up to it during a second interrogation. Detective Shields pulled a Bill Clinton by first saying, "I have never had sex with Meagan Hall," and then admitting that she had performed oral sex on him while they were both on duty when he was pressed for more information. It was clear that the officers had all planned to deny as far as they could, but once the dominoes started to fall, everyone's stories started to line up. But the more details that were revealed, the more complicated the story became, particularly in regard to Megan's place in it. You see, during his interview, Magliocco also shared that he had become concerned about her mental health and heavy drinking, which was sometimes even paired with driving. Although it was never confirmed if any of this particular behavior occurred while she was on duty. Magliocco highlighted one instance where Hall held an empty gun to her temple and pulled the trigger to, quote, "hear what it sounded like." During the internal interviews, Hall admitted that she had, quote, "just cracked," and the situation got out of hand as more men became involved. She described her actions as stupid and desperate, and while the pressure of the affairs had pushed her this far, having everything be revealed to the public was likely not the relief she was looking for. One event that reinforced the complicated nature of the situation was a Memorial Day party in a boathouse owned by another officer, which was mentioned repeatedly in the report. At one point during this party, an intoxicated Hall was in a hot tub with Magliocco, who was reportedly force-feeding her vodka. During this time, her top came off, and other cops quickly intervened to stop the woman from drinking and help her cover up, in what eyewitnesses called a move to protect her. Several officers had brought their children to this party, and it was perhaps the first time that the uncomfortable reality of the situation was brought into the public view. In the wake of the affairs coming to light, Lugo, Powell, and Shields were dismissed for violating police procedure and lying during the investigation, along with McGowan, who had also been witnessed choking a human resources employee on a separate occasion. It was further revealed that Hall and her former co-workers had shared lewd text messages and pornographic images of themselves, which added the issue of sexual harassment and, in the eyes of the law, further proved that these officers could not be trusted to maintain professionalism in their workplace. About a month later, Police Chief Burl Davis was also fired after reportedly impeding the investigation that had brought the scandal to light. Davis denied all knowledge of the affairs, although it certainly would have been in the department's best interest, at least publicly, to keep the details under wraps. But once Pandora's box was opened, there was no coming back. Unsurprisingly, Megan's story quickly spread across the internet, with her face becoming a meme shorthand for promiscuity almost overnight. Hall received little to no sympathy, with onlookers relentlessly poking fun at her actions. Even the Memorial Day party was soon almost universally referred to as a Girls Gone Wild event in the tabloid press. Despite this, though, there were many who took issue with this framing, instead viewing it as an uncomfortable instance of someone being pushed around while being too drunk to control or defend themselves. A Nashville strip club, Deja Vu Girls, even offered the former officer $10,000 in exchange for performing 2 shows, which was never accepted. It was clear that Hall's image had been irrevocably damaged in the public eye, but even as the jokes continued to flow, her side of the story would not be revealed for another month. In late February, Hall filed a federal complaint against her former department, claiming that she had been, quote, sexually groomed into the affairs with her fellow officers. In the complaint, she cited the origin of the sexual escapades as stemming from the stress of buying a home with her husbands, a process that was placing great strain on their marriage. She allegedly confided in Sergeant Powell about her struggles, both personally and professionally. As Hall tells it, Powell soon started to make lewd requests, which she rejected at first, but eventually caved to under the mounting pressure she was facing on multiple fronts. The lawsuit also claimed that when Hall tried to break off the affair, Powell threatened to take his own life. From there, this relationship led to the subsequent affairs, with Hall's colleagues and supervisors allegedly colluding to abuse their authority and keep her trapped in a situation that presented no clear escape. They even reportedly shared tips on the best ways to manipulate her. And this overwhelming situation, along with her history of mental illness, pushed Hall to the point where she even considered suicide as a way to avoid the embarrassment of the situation. If we take her word at face value, it seemed that the unstable behavior that was pointed out by Magliocco was not an explanation for the affairs, but rather a result of her mounting fear that there was no way to escape them. In subsequent interviews, Hall claimed that while many people in the public had dismissively said that she could have just said no to the sexual advancements of her coworkers, they would not take no for an answer. While Meagan's story did turn some of the onlookers to her side, many just continued posting memes. Even former Chief Davis had a reportedly larger role in the affairs by not only repressing the investigation against them, but also actively encouraging the culture they had created within the department. As Hall tells it, Davis had once asked her to come into his office to dance for him, and tried to get her to agree to lunch dates, which was likely a tactic to start an affair with her himself. Later, it was reported that the disgraced chief had also received nude photos of Hall on a burner phone, which put an end to his claims that he had no knowledge of the situation that was unfolding in his former department. Powell fired back with a counterclaim, alleging that Hall had been the one to initiate their affair after making several sexual suggestive comments to him at work, and insulting him when he turned her down. But with both of their reputations on the line, it's unclear who might be telling the truth, or if either of them are being entirely honest about what really happened.
I received harassing and threatening messages on my phone daily. I felt like I had been terrorized.
As for why this story blew up and lingered online, I think firstly, it's because of the outrageousness of all of it. Secondly, the fact that the woman involved wasn't conventionally attractive made it more humorous to many. And considering she had sex on the job as a police officer and committed adultery, made the left-leaning sex positivity crowd mostly unsympathetic to her plight. Hall's lawsuit, which names several of her former co-workers and the city of Vergne itself, seeks damages for lost wages, emotional distress, and reputational harm, which is arguably impossible to overcome in the wake of how the public received the initial story. What's significant about this development is that this woman will completely renew her 15 minutes of fame once the trial begins, as everyone's dirty laundry will be aired at length. And not only that, but this time everyone involved will be under oath, having to give up the graphic details of their affairs as they flesh out the already dysfunctional mess of the public spectacle. The trial date is currently set for March 18th, 2025, and until then, there is no way to know which side of the story will be accepted as the truth. At this point, Meagan Hall is still primarily a punchline, although one that has faded from the public eye, and will likely stay out of it until the trial brings her name back to the headlines.